Alrighty, chaps. So today we'll be talking about a 5v5 mode. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, let me go ahead and explain it to you. So roughly like a year ago, Behavior did a survey on what game modes we would want as the player base, and they give us many options, and some that are already in the game, like 2v8, My Little Oni, and Chaos Shuffle. But there has also been a lot of other modes that were brought up in that survey that are not in the game yet. And one that caught the interest of a lot of people, including me, was the 5v5 mode. I feel like the reason this intrigued a lot of people was because since DBD's inception, it has always been asymmetrical. And while that asymmetry has made it incredibly unique, it has also made it really hard to balance. And also, it might be holding it back in some aspects that 5v5 could potentially solve. However, we don't know what a 5v5 could entice, but just from the title alone, we can say that it will be symmetrical. And when something is symmetrical, it is much easier to make competitive because both sides have access to these things. I see it as time goes on that more and more people want some kind of rank mode or something that feels more competitive than just a normal game. And you can see this because more and more people are doing streaks and more people are even doing like comp tournaments, mostly content creators. But nevertheless, this is like enticing people to come and watch this more competitive side of DBD. But if you have been around the comp scene in, like in games as a whole, you can kind of see that asymmetry and competitiveness usually don't mix very well. If you see the top games with esports, they're usually symmetrical, like CS:GO, R6, League of Legends, Valorant, and many more. But if you see some of the DBD tournaments, you'll see that in order to make it entertainable, they have to remove quite a few things. Like, for example, depending on the tournament, they may remove top killers. So, Blight and Nurse, maybe even Billy, are out of the game. They usually allow Billy and Blight, but usually sometimes Nurse is sometimes out for the most part because they usually ban them. It depends on the tournament creator. They also don't allow add-ons higher than rare, which is like anything higher than blue, they won't allow. So they won't allow purple nor iridescent. They also don't allow most maps because usually most maps in the game are sighted towards one side, either towards survivor or towards killer. So they try to find like the best map that is kind of like a combination of like, okay, this is balanced for both sides. So it's not like the killer is like winning every single time they're in this map and the survivor's winning in every single time like in this map. So like they try to find a balance, but even with them trying to find a balance, there's just some things that they cannot balance. And one of the things is the RNG factors, and one of those RNG factors that they cannot control at all is like just windows and pallet spawning. Sometimes there could be like 5 more pallets that spawn in one map or one map rotation, and then in the next rotation it's like, oh, it's only like 3 less. So it's like those survivors have way less room to play around. It's not a set amount of pallets. So that's also another thing that they can't control. I could even mention another thing. Sometimes pallets spawn in different areas, windows spawn instead of pallets. Like a lot of stuff happens that they cannot control. And sometimes that could be the means between like, oh, well, this killer would have technically won if the RNG was slightly better on his side rather than the side of the survivor. So it's kind of like that. If there were a 5v5 mode, I could only assume it would involve 1 killer and 4 survivors on each side, and they would probably fight over control of a really big map, probably like around the size of like initial release of Temple of Purgation was huge, but I still think that this map would have to be slightly bigger than that, just to maybe just so it's not too small. And probably your team, if you're a killer, your team survivors will go do the gens from the enemy side and vice versa, and you as a killer and the other killer has to stop your people from doing his gens, and you have to stop his people from stopping your gens or from doing your gens. I feel like that's probably how it would work. Once again, this is just me rambling on how I think it should or maybe would probably work. But nevertheless, if this was the case, it would mean that both sides have access to the same things. So each killer player can do Blight versus Blight if they wanted. Like, let's say that at first they were going Trapper, and then all of a sudden they see that the guy changed to Blight, and he's like going around doing better, obviously, than the Trapper. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and switch to Blight and also like match his speed. You can go ahead and do that. Or maybe you think you would do better with Billy, or maybe you do better with Nurse. But nevertheless, you both have access to the same materials, the same resources as the other side. So there's no asymmetry in here going around. And when it comes to the maps, I would prefer for them to be set rather than RNG dependent. For me, when something is RNG dependent, it usually doesn't feel good because the game just feels like it was against you from the very beginning. I would prefer maps that are already predetermined but good on both sides. That is so much better rather than having like, or this time around, oh, the map was on my side. Oh, but then like I play the same map the next time, oh, it wasn't on my side, and I get completely like railed. The only thing I would like for them to do that might be restrictive, maybe too restrictive, but I think this is a necessary evil kind of restrictive, is to make it where survivors cannot duplicate their perks on each side. I feel like if survivors were able to duplicate their perks on each side, the match or the game as a whole would become pretty boring quickly. Like it would be like playing against a sweaty Swift. So no duplication of perks. That's the only restriction I would allow because yeah, no, that becomes really annoying really fast on both sides. But I just want to state that this is just my idea how a 5v5 should work, or maybe close to this idea. Maybe you can come up with a better idea, but this is just my idea. Because sometimes when I play DBD, I feel like I have to sweat in order to win. But then I'm thinking to myself, like, why am I sweating? There's literally no incentive or punishment to this. And that's why I started a Billy no perk streak. Because now, when I play Billy on no perks, now there is an incentive and a punishment to my games. If I win, yay, another number. If I lose, well, I lose everything. So now there's like something to like hold me accountable for my games now. It's more fun, at least for me, and I know for a lot of people it is like that as well. I can also see why they haven't added this mode yet, because it will probably become their most unique and experimental mode yet. And if it's integrated properly, it could literally become its own game, kind of like how Teamfight Tactics literally became its own separate game, even though it started as like a little mode on League of Legends, and then it just sprouted into its own little like standalone game, which is crazy. This could potentially happen with DBD if the 5v5 mode is done correctly. And not only that, if that were to happen, let's say eventually becomes it's a standalone game mode, or like it's standalone game, DBD in theory should be less sweaty, because now all the sweaty people are being like, basically they're flocking over to the 5v5. There is no need to be sweating on Dead by Daylight. There will still be people who sweat in Dead by Daylight, no matter what. Even in games, you go play a casual game and anywhere else, and you'll still find like somebody who's sweating their balls off like for no reason. Like, why are you doing that? Like, come on, go play ranked. So yeah, I think that adding a 5v5 mode could completely change DBD's course forever if they incorporate it to at least a decent level, which I know they can. At least to a decent level. They're usually not good at incorporating things at a great or good level, but I know for the most part they're good at doing at a decent level. So I know they could do that if they really do try. But anyways, what are y'all's thoughts on this? Do you agree that the devs should push more for a 5v5 mode, or should they focus their resources on another mode? Anyways, chaps, that's all for today, and I'll see you in the next one.